All right, guys, here we are, Monday night. It's a Monday night scan, not a Sunday night scan, because we didn't have market today. Today is Memorial Day, and I think it's very important to think about, or at least understand, why we didn't have trading today. And it's a time to reflect and honor all of those who have actually paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. So without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So it is a very important time to kind of reflect and honor those that have passed in the line of duty. And as well as always, it's always we're always very thankful for everybody that is in the service as well. Although this weekend is obviously reflecting upon those who have actually passed. One major thing that has changed in my life, as I said, we were on the baby watch for quite some time. So we've got a 1 month old, or 1 month old. Well, he came out about 1 month, 1 week old at home. He is about the size of a 1 month old. But his name is Aiden, and it's been quite the pleasure. I've been keeping up. I've been able to get to the desk in the morning, Thursday, Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was a little, there and away. But, everybody kept the chat room working. Amazing alerts, amazing people, amazing news, as always. So very thankful for all those people that, help make IU what it is, the community that it is, and what it's grown to be. So just a quick thank you to all of those who have helped make that difference. And many of you already, kind of know who you are anyway, because I do thank you on a regular basis. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about adjustments and just kind of some things that happen when you are away from the screens. And it was very important for me to stay current. It's different to try to trade and not really be by the screens, right? You can come to the market, you can have an idea of what you want to do, but unless you're really in the trenches every single day, unless you really have a good feel for what's going on, sometimes you feel a little like out. You feel like you just kind of unfamiliar with the territory, and that's what happens when you miss a couple days. So although it was very important for me to kind of pull away from the market while my son was born, it was also very important for me to just kind of reflect, review, and kind of see what happened each night. Even if it just took 10 or 20 minutes, just go through the chat logs, go through scans, go through and see what actually happened. Otherwise, you end up falling way behind. So even when I go on vacation, which is rare, I always like to kind of just do a review of the day and kind of see where things are at, see what happened, because you don't realize how much information you actually pull from the screens that you might not use that day, but you use the next day, the following week, the week after, whatever it may be. You remember how it reacted at a certain number. You reacted how it should have broken out, and that reaction, you were like, whoa, that I'm going to need to remember that for tomorrow. All these things you might not necessarily think that you're going to use right away, but you do. And that's why I always kind of talk about screen time and how important screen time is. Everybody wants to learn how to read tape. Everybody wants to learn how to read a level 2. Everybody wants to learn how to read a chart better. But there is no watch this video and you learn it all, right? It's just a continual refinement over and over and fine-tuning, what you've seen, how it reacted last time, how it reacted this time. And when you pull yourself out of the market, it obviously makes it difficult to apply the prior day's actions to your trade today. So I felt that was very important to kind of mention. It's just something that I always try to do, especially if I was away for the day, or which again is very rare. But I always try to review, and I think that's very important. The last video, my title was "Millions of New Traders Will Blow Up for This One Reason." And so we went over it, and I was talking about how, there's the Google Trends is just like this, right? With new traders coming to the market, just kind of diving in, just going nuts. They just all want to be part of the action. There's no sports gambling right now. There's Barstool Sports. Dave is, he's got a huge gambling following, for sports betting and things like that. And obviously there's nothing to do right now in regards to that. So. He's got a whole big following with trading now, and all these guys, not necessarily him, but just in general, all these people with their stimulus checks and just starting to Google trading because they're home now, they have extra time, they lost their job, whatever it may be. All these people are firing first, asking questions later, right? They're getting in the name first, asking questions later. And the main thing was that there's going to be big lessons coming very, very soon. And I always talk about the know what you own. And I gave 2 examples of that this week. NNDM, which that morning I said, hey, great move, but if you're long this, know what you own. It's probably not a good idea to be long. And about 10 minutes later, they offered, it dropped about 50%. So that is exactly what my video was about last week, where millions of new traders are going to lose a ton of money because they have no idea what they're doing. They're chasing the dream, and that's fine because the guys, ladies that are watching these videos are that much better off than somebody that is chasing that dangling carrot of the Lamborghini that they saw, the big P&L that they saw, whatever it may be. Obviously, they're going to be one step behind you. So, hey, that's fine. Then the other one was SNCA, which was another example. We've seen this one before. They had since done a reverse split, if I remember correctly. But they're a serial. They just serial offender. They just keep on doing the same thing over and over again. And once again, they raised the following morning. So that was really 2 for 2 last week on the Know What You Own warnings, as well as a few others that, just like SRNE. SRNE is backpedaling on some of the comments that they had, which, anytime that happens, I don't care if they put out another PR, if they keep on going up. I don't care what happens to them. But I know that I don't want to be long, because even if there's that slight risk that they could halt, I'm out. Why would I want to stay in a name where there's that small chance that it could happen? They've already done a couple of them. And so I think that it's very important to make sure that you understand when there is that small chance that is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Even if you only had 10,000 shares, and you've got a 50 grand position, and you might not think that that full amount of money is at risk. Sure, maybe not all 50 grand, but if it does halt, and if it were to open 50, 60, 70% lower, where does that leave you? You've blown your account potentially. So anytime that there's a situation like that, I'm not here to try to suggest that it's going to halt and you're going to lose your money, but it just reminds you that all it takes is that one trade, and when there's a higher degree of risk, why bother? Why risk it? So anyway, that was another comment there. The other tidbits that I wanted to cover today was stay focused, eyes on the prize, right? So, people are killing it right now. And then there's other people that are not. And, I talk to a bunch of traders. I have a very good team of friends. Some we share P&L every single day. And others, we never talk P&L. We just talk trades. We just talk opportunities and know what each other like to see. The people that I talk P&L with, we don't influence each other. It's always high five, or when we're down, you pick each other up. There's never a situation where I just told that person how much I made, and then they're jealous, and there's this tension between us. There's none of that ever with that particular group. Other ones, they might be best of best friends, but then there starts to be this not necessarily jealousy factor, but there's this, thing that you could avoid. And that's easily done by just not talking P&L, but talk strategy, talk the trade at hand, and just leave that part of it out of the conversation. Because now, instead of staying focused on the prize, you're kind of veering off the path a little bit. And that is very important to make sure you're staying on your path, right? I've said it before, there's always going to be somebody trading better than you. Always. And that was the hardest part for me, especially earlier in the week when I was in the hospital waiting for my son to be born, which I did not know it was going to be a son until he came out. But when I was there, there was SRNE trade. And yeah, I had major FOMO. Of course I did. Who wouldn't? But obviously there's some things that are more important. But I'm just thinking about, oh my gosh, like I know, my friend here, he probably sized to the max size because of the volume, this and that. I'm just going through and like, oh my gosh, how much did I leave on the table? And I'm having just this major FOMO because I know that was a home run A+ trade. And, it is what it is. That information, thinking about what other people were making, thinking about what I could have made, there's nothing you can do about it. And all that's doing is taking me off this course, right? So you got to always just think about where you're going, what you're doing. And the only thing that you can do to kind of take from those people that are doing better is just how can you improve yourself? How can you better your trade? And it's so easy to be influenced, as I've said a million times. I've talked to a lot of traders, a lot of close friends that are kind of up and coming, and see people posting P&Ls and stuff, and they get aggravated, and I should be there. I could have done that, but you know what? You didn't, because you're just not there yet. But how do you improve? How do you identify that is the trade that you wanted to size up on? How do you better yourself? So that's where your head should be at on those types of plays. But again, there's a lot of craziness going on right now. There's a lot of people making a lot of money, and I'm telling you, just like I said in the last video, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose a lot of money very quickly. It's all working right now, but at some point, it's not. It's not. And just as you saw, those two examples that I gave that I tweeted out ahead of time, all get a 50% haircut. So that's 50% of somebody's money gone. Another point that I want to go over was drawing those levels and staying focused on the front side versus the back side of the move. We talk about this every day in the Traders Lounge. And every single day, somebody asks the same question 5 minutes later. And they just don't get it because they make it too hard. It is the most simplest thing that you can do is draw a line at the prior level of support and wait for that level to crack. And not just hit and crack, but confirm, fail, fail, fail. So now the support becomes the resistance and it confirms a couple times. It starts to fade off. That is what I'm looking for the backside of a move. So, for example, on Friday, PDD. I wasted a lot of time on that. I felt pretty confident about potentially having a trade later on in the day, so I wanted to stay in the zone on it. But I went in and I traded it throughout the day here and there about 3 different times. But I just overstayed. There was no reason to be there. And all it did was cost me, it was opportunity cost, right? My eyes were here when I could have been watching FSLY or something else that I was prepared for. But I missed FSLY because I was focused on nailing that PDD. That PDD trade did not come at all. All it did was just go up, pull back, go up, pull back, go up, pull back. And so we were talking about it in the room. I was just dabbling in and trying to get a feel for, what potential trade may be coming. And it's one of those where it's so easy to just kind of add against the loser. Add, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, just ran $2, $3. When did this happen? So the easy way is to just find out where that keeps on hitting the support level. So I posted those in the room, and I always try to do that because a lot of people try to find the top, and it's very easy to try to find the top and get ran over. So a very simple solution: look left, find out where the trend was holding. They always come back, test, go, come back, test, go, come back, test, go. So why are you going to be shorting on this top part of that move? Let the chips fall. Let it turn. Let the tide turn. Because when the tide turns, all that volume up here is now going to be helping you on the backside of the trade. Okay? So also, it felt like it was a range-bound kind of day on Friday. It felt like there's certain days to trade, right? So mRNA had a fantastic trade. A couple other, maybe JD, a few other names earlier in the week were fantastic trades. But then there's those days where it's just going to consolidate, and you have to recognize that. A lot of times we want to size, just like Penn, PENN, crushed it out of the gate. But I wanted more. Personally, I thought that was going to be the day that it was going to unwind. Guess what? It wasn't. So instead of just waiting for those levels to crack, I stayed and was trying to wait for more, when I could have just waited for it to prove that it wanted to break down and then react. Instead, I stayed in with risk in a trade that didn't necessarily go up much, but it also just didn't go anywhere. So all day I'm staring at this, waiting for my trade that I thought should happen. I was trading what I thought should happen versus what was happening. So that was the two on Friday that kind of pulled me away from other focus. It's worth noting. I'm aware of it. I talk about it. And just like I said, if you verbalize your trade, verbalize things that you recognize you're doing, it'll help you prevent it the next time. So tomorrow I'll prevent that. And then that's it as far as my notes for leading up into scan tonight. So anyway, NAVB. Get this going, and it doesn't have the 1 minute chart because it thinks today was a trading day, but it wasn't. So I got to go back to Friday. But the areas of interest. So basically what I'm looking for is, ideally, and I highly doubt this is going to happen, but I want it to come back to 270s. I would love for it to gap up and push, but I think it's going to gap down. I think it's going to gap down under 220s. And if that's the case, then I'll still probably be leaning on it into pops that fail, because most people will take it off their radar. Most people will not be interested, but I still think it could fade to 170, 180s. And then continue to go down. In any other market, this wouldn't have done what it did. But in this market, chasers are crazy. There's no shortage of speculation going on. And with that said, we had a huge runner. So I started on Friday a little bit early. I got into about a third size of where I wanted to be. Then I got to about half size into this spike, basically looking left. But I just didn't get to full size, and it didn't do exactly what I thought. It worked out. It pulled back. It did, an okay job, but I was thinking we were going to get another 30, 40, 50 cents out of it. Just didn't happen. So, missized. I should have just waited until the open, treated the first trade as a pre-market trade, but, it is okay. Minimize what the opportunity was, given the fact that I was trading a bit of size, there was a lot of slippage of where I kind of had a preconceived idea of, what to expect. It just didn't do as I planned. So overall, it was fine. But again, I think that there's a big trade still to be had here, and maybe another 40, 50, 60 cents of downside. But in a perfect world, like I said, we open up 250, 260, 270. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's, that would make it a main watch. That's what I want to see. Then we have Penn. Penn is staying focused. Nice ABCD type move, all higher lows. comes back over VWAP, confirms, and continues to squeeze out back to the highs. So we know shorts are twisted. I'm going to watch PENN and ERI, both the kind of the same kind of thesis, but Penn is obviously the one I prefer. We are in giant squeeze mode right now, kind of crazy. And who knows? Maybe as things get better, as things reopen, this just keeps on going up. It was on quite the run prior to all of this happening, but at this point, I think it's just squeezing out. And then as soon as it's done, I think it's going to have that 2-2-2 type of pullback, which I'd love to be part of. The only way I won't be part of that is if I keep on trying to find the top. So I don't want to pre-exhaust myself on the front side of the move. So I'm keeping that in. I'm keeping that in the back of my mind where, wait for that setup. There's going to be a day to get it, but it's not every single day, and it doesn't have to crack. So I want to be focused and wait for that edge versus just trying to trade it every single day and trying to figure it out. ZFGN. This one, you can see a lot of volume came in here, and this is very similar to RTTR and BPMX. So anybody that listened to last week's scan probably did pretty well on those ideas. One of them went almost double, and one of them went maybe like 30, 40, 50%, something like that. But the theme that I had seen kind of starting up was going into the vote, the merger vote. A lot of times back in 2019 on some of these, they would have that run up right into the merger vote. So that is Thursday, I believe, on this one. It was the 28th. So into Thursday, this very easily could be, 130, 140, 150, 170. Who knows? We don't know. We just saw it on RTTR where it ran up into that, as well as BPMX, but they changed maybe not. But you can see here, this was the one that went, crazy. It went all the way up to 88. And the idea was in the 40s, 50s. So that was the doubler. So that is the thesis with this ZFGN, where it had a nice buyer in there, had a steady trend. And there is a good chance that it might go 20, 30, 40, 50%, maybe more. It just depends on, who's chasing what out of the open on Tuesday. But it's a real theme that's been working. So I'm going to continue to trade it until it stops working, right? So keep that one on watch just in case. I did get in there on Friday. Noted it towards the end of the day in the room as a potential watch for this week ahead, just because of the reasons I stated. There's we've seen it working over and over and over again. So definitely keep that in mind. ACB ended up pulling back a lot more than I had hoped. I started into that one, TLRY and CGC. CGC ended up holding all the gains, but I just kind of spread it across each one. The only one that pulled back a little bit more than I expected was CGC. But I was just going to let them work until they don't work. And I'm thinking potentially weak opens get bought up. And if that's the case, then I'll be, looking to trade it actively. If it gaps up and fails, then I'll probably move on. But overall, nice little sector move as of the last couple days. Kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, that Tilray move was major. And then that AGC, or ACG rather. I had it right. AGC. Nope. ACB. See? I'm sleep deprived. But, this one was a great swing trade from the 8s last, I think it was a week and a half ago or so. Got a piece of it, not anywhere near where I should have. But nice, ended up pulling back. And I think that if it's going to go, it's going to probably base 1650s for a couple days, 17s, and then go 22. If it can't, and it fails, and it can't get over those 1650s, I don't want to hold this thing for very long. And then at which point I would be looking for backside trade like RAD that I compared it to in the past. So for those of you guys that don't know what I'm talking about on RAD, We had this huge squeeze out and then pulled back. Ended up coming back again. So I do expect a lot of opportunities on ACB. I just don't want to get too biased to the long side just because it worked so far. Other than that, mRNA, as always, it's been a great trader. Again, look for the big move. You don't need to trade every single move. You can see most of the moves are in the morning or else later on away from VWAP. If you find yourself trying to figure out what's going to happen in this area around VWAP, that's when you're going to get chopped up. If you start to size in, anticipating, this thing to crack or to break out before you have a padding, that's where you're going to lose. So there's no problem with starting in and then scaling if you're right, but just be cautious if it's hugging that VWAP level. Home's been a nice little trader. Not a big scorer or anything yet, but I've been watching it versus the 440s and maybe under 420, 410s. I think maybe we get one of those days where it's down 40, 50, 60, 70 cents. I think that this is just a squeeze. I don't think it's going to go too crazy, but it reminds me a lot of like BBBY when it kind of squeezed out over here and then faded off. I'm just kind of looking to trade that pullback. I don't care what it's going to end up doing on earnings. I don't care what it's going to end up doing in 3 months. I'm just looking to trade as soon as they exhaust out this round of shorts. Once they exhaust out this round of shorts, I think it's going to pull right back to kind of where it came from. And 440 to 360 is a big move that I think I can get a good piece of. So other than that, BJ, I've got a couple that I'm just watching. BJ, I am looking for that failed follow through momentum, given that the mark, everything's just been straight up. So if things do start to pull back, then I'd be looking for the fade. But look at FSLY and look at BJ, right? So maybe we have a move that is just starting out where we have that first candle, the next candle, and then it just kind of goes up. I want to be aware of that. I want to be, I don't want to be trying to find the top like PDD, but I do think that if it fails, and if it were to fail, what I'd want to see is basically peak out at 37s, and then this 3650 starts to become kind of heavy. I'd be looking to fade that. Otherwise, assume it's in FSLY mode. MAC and LX both were of interest just because if you look at the daily, thinking we're getting into some unwind mode. So looking to basically fade all pops until it stops working. And fade all pops until it stops working to me means 9:45, 10 a.m. If it's rebounding and it starts to fail, I want to join that fail. And ideally it flushes out and then trade's done. CLSN, this one's been a nice one. I had this overnight on Thursday, anticipating more of a squeeze. So we got it. We got 22 million shares on Friday. So I still think that there's potential here. And we're coming into after a long weekend. They let it come down. They didn't necessarily let shorts all the way out. So I do think that we could still squeeze out. So I'd be looking versus 280s. If 280 starts to base, starts to consolidate, and looks like it's going to squeeze out, I'd be participating in that breakout. But after it gets towards 340s, 350s, if it just has a fast push, I'm probably going to be on the exit side. I don't want to overstay, and you need to remind yourself it has had a pretty big move. So that doesn't mean that it can't keep on going. When it's going, it can keep on going. But I do think that if it bases and holds, consolidates 280s, we might get a nice 350 plus parabolic type move. And at which case, I would be then looking for the backside shortly after that. Mark, this has been just like FCEL so far. I mean, like almost to a T, where it's got that first big move, pulls back, consolidates, and now it's on that next breakout where it could break the highs and then we have potentially another trade. So this one's always fun to tweet on, just because if you short at one time, that means you're a perma short, and even if it drops 50%, and then it bounces back up to a level that's lower than where you shorted, you're still upside down according to half a Twitter sphere. So but anyway, with that said, it is forming very similar chart to FCEL, which is kind of what I was anticipating. So with that said, I'm hoping that it goes back and retests towards highs and gives us that opportunity to get short again. But you can see all dips are getting soaked. And, hopefully if it does give us that opportunity again, it might set back up a third time, just like FCEL did. As you can see right over here, it had 3 tests of the highs before it actually ended up pulling back and, fading off. So the biggest thing right here is just to not, fall in love with any one side. It had a huge opportunity at that time that we shorted off the 250s. And it fell over 50%, well, about 50% or so within 2-3 days. So already snapped back, probably lots of shorts, a lot less volume this time. So you want to be cautious getting aggressive on the wrong side of the trade. 2 others, SNDL and CKPT. CKPT, nice ABCD or type action, nice trend on Friday. You can see just a buyer in the tape. All dips, it's holding VWAP. This is what I'm talking about, where it holds VWAP. So I've been watching that one. I don't have a position yet. I will be looking to potentially join trend. That'd be more of like an IRA type trade where I'm thinking multiple days, 3, 4, 5 days. SNDL feels like it could have been like a transitional day where, they let everybody out that wanted to get out, shorts in, but use the day to accumulate. So now at this point, what I'd want to see is for it to kind of base for a few days, maybe dip, hold 75 cents, and then if it starts to trend up 85, 90, and so on and so forth, then I'd probably be looking to trade that. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be, go time this week, like bam, it's back to 150 or something. Not looking for a trade like that, but I am looking to see how this starts to set up. And if it does start to set up, then I'd be interested in joining that trend. I have a small position at the moment. I want to remember the trade. But for now, I would assume that it fails. So I want to see 75, 80 start to base over the next couple days, maybe week, and then if so, then I potentially would join the trend. Other than that, I've got my normals, PDD, huge squeeze on Friday, just straight up. Difficult trade if you're trying to trade this thing on the short side, obviously, especially when it flushes out 4 or 5, back up 4, down 3, up 3, down 3, and then it pulls back $1. Right back up on air. So it's a difficult trade if you're fighting it. So point is, don't fight it. But I've got about 5, 6, 7, 8, about 6 or 7 charts. In addition, as I said, go to the description, click the link, and you can go to the IU website. And I've just got a couple other watches that I like to set price alerts. So I don't want to overload my main watches. As you saw, I only have 4. And so that is NAVB, PENN, ZFGN, and ACB. I'm sure we'll have 2 rockets off the pre-market tomorrow morning, just because it's a 3-day weekend. Everybody's got some pent up emotion and aggression from the weekend, and they're going to be chasing everything pre-market. So let's see what happens. This week's winner is Anthony McCoy. So you can email me, webmaster@investorsunderground.com. And you've won the t-shirt for this week. And if you guys have any questions at all about joining the room, if you guys have any questions prior to coming on board, feel free to reach out. As always, leave comments, questions in the comment section. I read them all. I try to get back to them. And then I kind of pull from it to think about what I'm going to talk about at the start of each Sunday scan. So that's kind of where you see me get my list together and my thoughts. And so that's it. So thank you guys for joining me today, and we'll see you guys in the room tomorrow.